There was a group of middle school boys that thought that their male teacher was acting creepy toward girls at school. So what did they do? They started tracking his behavior. Yeah. 8 seventh grade boys from Davisville Middle School in Rhode Island created a pedo database that's been tracking one male teacher every sketchy move that he made toward the girls in his class since January. The database is now being used as evidence in an investigation against that male teacher. And that male teacher's name hasn't been released because he gets to be shielded publicly from accountability as far as I'm concerned. Well, the group of boys, they first noticed this behavior that was inappropriate, well, while they were in the 6th grade. Okay, so this is what we know. According to the Globe, his actions included leering at some girls, singling them out with pet nicknames, and encouraging them to dance for him, while male students were treated with contempt and sometimes cruelty. They tried to tell students about what they were witnessing. They tried to tell, adults about what they were witnessing, but were brushed off without much concern. Sometimes the girls would laugh. Sometimes they just sit there awkwardly. One of the boys told the Globe in an interview, even the ones that said he was creepy laughed because they were obviously not trying to tick him off or anything. So they're just fake laughing, awkwardly laughing. And as a woman, I can tell you, yeah, that's oftentimes what we do. Because what are you going to say to someone who is bigger than you, who's also in a position of authority over you, who is making you feel uncomfortable? The response is not necessarily one in which you would think would be maybe normal when it comes to feeling uncomfortable, but let me tell you, it's very normal. And the sound bites that the boys ended up documenting from the teacher, well, they range from deeply uncomfortable to downright gross. Here's a few of them. You all love me, so choose love. You got to stand up and dance now. Everyone in bathing suits tomorrow. One student would remark, I felt bad for the girls because sometimes it just seems like it was a humiliating thing, the boy told the Globe. He'd play a song and he'd make one of them get up and dance. Now in April, this same male teacher was placed on leave for allegedly stalking a preteen girl at another school while he was her coach. Yeah, because this is a behavior. That's something that I often talk about when it comes to harassers in this world. This is how they act. It's never a one-off. And that investigation is ongoing. But what seems to be most concerning about this entire situation, as far as I'm concerned, is the overwhelming disbelief from those who the boys reported the situation to. Per the Globe's report, even after being reported for stalking, the teacher went on to coach in 2 other school districts, and even some parents had a hard time taking their son's allegations seriously. Yeah, that's right. They weren't unwilling to listen to these kids. These kids know better. They know right from wrong. They know when people are feeling humiliated and uncomfortable, and they use their voices to speak out only for the adults, individuals who are supposed to be protecting them, to dismiss them, to remain silent as opposed to taking them seriously. And just think about it. If the boys using their voices were dismissed and ignored, why didn't the girls speak up? Well, you have your answer right there. Yeah, and it also shouldn't be surprising about the situation with this male teacher allowing to continue to stay at the school and be able to move around and coach as he pleased, considering past scandals in the exact same school district. Now, North Kingston public school system, well, it found top administrators turned a blind eye to the inappropriate behavior of former high school boys basketball coach Aaron Thomas. Former student athletes had come forward to accuse Thomas of making them meet him behind closed doors and strip naked. Behavior they said he had engaged in for years. Once naked, the coach would instruct the teenagers to perform stretches, sit cross-legged in front of them, and allow him to use a caliper to pinch and measure their body fat. How absolutely demeaning and disgusting is that? Yet this individual was able to do it for years and years. And to think that no adults knew, I don't believe it. I think that they turned a blind eye. And hey, that was found to be the case. Why don't we listen to our children when it comes to sexual violence, when it comes to this type of harassment behavior that goes on from those who they should be able to trust? It's a question I don't know the answer to other than the patriarchy, but I can damn sure tell you it's completely unacceptable. Jessica.
Absolutely. I think you're right that the most outrageous part of this story is the disbelief, because you and I both know as women who have to interact with men in positions of power who use that power everyone has a story, who use that power in ways that make women terribly uncomfortable. And so the types of phrases that he uses, come in bikinis, dance, it's the kind of casual, seemingly friendly, but entirely inappropriate and things that make women so uncomfortable. The last thing you want to do is go to school where you're intending to learn and get an education, and all you learn is that men will objectify you when they're in positions of power throughout your life. Children should not be subjected to this. The fact that he has done this before, has stalked a preteen girl, and he was the coach of the team, and he still has a job in the schools, is insane. And this story just goes to show how people in power will not be held accountable and how the powerless don't have justice in our society. Children in school are forced to be there for the entire day. The fact that these girls were just uncomfortably laughing, where are they going to go? Are they going to stand up to their teacher who has to give them a grade and might complain about their behavior to their parents? This is a bad situation. The fact that it was a public school is a huge problem as well, because these people are under the custody of the government, right? When you're in a public school, you're no longer under the supervision of your parents. You're at the mercy of those teachers. So this story is disgusting, but I like that the kids are all right. These boys that created the database to track the behavior were standing up to power. They were organizing together and they were being good allies. I'm sure they were upset by how this teacher was, treating them with contempt and giving the girls favorable treatment. But at the end of the day, what they did was stand up for those girls. And I also like, as someone who has used data before, and have a background in using data can be used for good. We always hear about, the evil uses of data, corporations selling your data for profit and giving you targeted advertisements and coercing you into buying things that you don't need. And also the more malicious examples of how the Trump campaign has used data online, collecting very personal information about people to find out who was susceptible to misinformation, then pushing misinformation to them during the Trump campaign in 2016 to push them in the direction of voting for him. But I really like the notion that data is like a knife. This is something that a whistleblower at Cambridge Analytica said. They said, you can use a knife to make a sandwich, but you can also use a knife to really hurt and murder someone. And this is an example of how just collecting data in one place can help you build power and use it for good. So solidarity with these kids. This is an example of good allyship and the kind of behavior you can exhibit if you see wrongdoing. I know that things like this have been done on bathroom doors. I heard a story about Columbia University law students in the women's bathroom writing down the names and sharing stories of men who made them uncomfortable and who have a history of doing things like this. There's a lot of power in pooling information together to hold others accountable. I just wish that the teachers listened to them, because even when they were well organized like this, the teachers were not.
Yes, and there needs to be consequences for this. As we saw with Columbia recently, they've dropped in the rankings from number 2 to number 18 in terms of educational institutions, in part because a professor lied, but really it should be when the students aren't safe there because of sexual misconduct committed by those in positions of power. And as we saw the sexual misconduct, or at least read about it, as it concerns the school district, the thing that also truly bothers me is the protection of the man's name. I think that we can all attest to the fact that this individual did engage in these activities and this behavior, given the documentation by these children. And so I have no doubt about that, as far as I'm concerned, even though the investigation needs to continue, but really shielding his name. He should have to answer. These children have been subjected to being in an environment that is incredibly toxic. I'm sure it has played a role on these girls, their lives. As you said, they're learning that they are going to be objectified, that they're going to be sexualized, and that they're going to simply have to laugh and nod and continue to move forward in educational institutions and school where they should be safe. And so the thought that this man, again, continues to enjoy anonymity is extremely problematic for me. As well as knowing that the school district has a history of this. Altogether, I really hope that there is some kind of class action against the school district, because as much as when it comes to policing and having lawsuits and big payouts, as much as it doesn't really prove to be significant in terms of change? With school districts, oh, it does, very much so, because they will get rid of those administrators. Those teachers will be up and out. Things will change significantly. And so I do hope that the parents stand up. And additionally, I hope that the parents look inward, that they look to themselves and why they were so okay with ignoring their children's pleas, ignoring the thought that they were not telling the truth, or also why their daughters didn't feel comfortable coming to them to say, I feel uncomfortable, that this person is making me uncomfortable. These are all things that need to be explored if there's going to be any meaningful change, but these parents need to definitely hold themselves accountable. Any last words, Jessica?
Yeah, children are really impressionable. And it's important you point out that the parents and the teachers not listening to them has an impact. The kind of thinking that this puts them in is, oh, if someone wrongs me, people in power will not do anything to stand up for me. And you learn this behavior of, I just kind of have to take this. It's a part of life in this world. We need to be teaching kids that this isn't okay. And listen to them when they bring this up, because the kind of people you raise are people who will accept the kind of world we live in. And I'm sure everyone wants to believe we can stand up to power and see a world where our values are actually lived out. We have to teach our kids that that is possible if we ever want that to be a reality. And it really starts in these small ways where you learn that you are powerless in your current position. We need to validate children when they call out injustice, because I do believe that every human being has a sense of justice and they're born with it. And when they see behavior where people are treating those that are innocent and those who don't have power this way, they want to stand up for it. And by teaching them that nothing really will happen when you do that is going to lead us into the kind of world where people are complacent. They don't want to engage in politics. They don't want to face the problems of our society or own them as their own. They see themselves as a part of this system, and they're going to make themselves comfortable and do the best that they can, instead of living in a world where we all come together and actually stand up when we see things that don't reflect our values, because everyone deserves to live in a society where their values are lived out and people aren't wronging each other every day. And by not listening to children who are coming to us from a position of powerless, we're teaching them that that's not possible from a very early age. And the consequences are living in this kind of world for decades to come.
Yep. And that's not necessarily a world that I want to live in. So hopefully people will invest in making this meaningful change and holding the adults accountable who could have stopped this or who were engaging in the behavior that was perpetuating this.